Hi and welcome back to Garden Ninja for the March tour here at Garden Ninja HQ. Today's video guide is going to be showing you what I've been up to in my garden in March and bringing you loads of tips that you can use in your own gardens, especially if you're a beginner. So come on, let's get cracking. If you've not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit the red button to subscribe today. Also click the bell for notifications. We'll have access to hundreds of garden design hints, tips and hacks from me, the Garden Ninja. And best of all, it's free. Now the moon gate behind me has some interesting things popping up right now in March, so let's go take a look. Spring bulbs are an absolute essential if you want to extend the season within your garden. And here near the moon gate we've got these gorgeous summer snowflake, Leucogen. They're also known as a summer snowdrop. I don't really know why, because they come up in March and by April they're pretty much gone. But these are a great example of a late spring bulb that can help bring a bit of a pop of colour and interest for wildlife early doors. These are also great in containers and city gardens because they're really tough. They don't need huge amounts of sun, they will survive in dappled shade, and over the years they will start to bulk up and then you can lift them and split them. And they're just a really unusual yet gorgeous plant for the garden in spring. So take a look down here. If you watched last month's garden tour, you'll know that I planted this, which is a medlar, because the evergreen oak here got blown over in the storm and I couldn't save it. Now it's only been in about 4 weeks, but already, if we take a close up, you'll see that the buds are starting to break, which means that spring is here. Now I need to keep this well watered, especially in the current heat wave, for the next couple of weeks. But as it starts to grow throughout this year, I'm going to be giving it a top of water when it needs it, and that will help it establish roots. But it does just go to show how quickly these bare root trees can establish, and that's why they're such great value for the garden. Now here in the UK we've had some really bad storms and weather, and unfortunately a few of the climbing plants, like the ones behind me on this pergola, have become untethered. So what I need to do today is get my ladders out and tie them back in. Now I tend to use natural string, and when tying them in I leave about 2 or 3 mil of leeway so that they're not completely constricted onto the structure. And the reason why I do that is if I leave a bit of gap between them, it means that when they're growing, or if we have even more strong winds, they're not going to get damaged because they can flex and move slightly within that climbing frame. So March is a prime time to get out into the garden and start weeding. If you didn't weed in February, like I advised, then there is still time. And really the sooner you can start the better, because at the moment, as you'll see behind me, all the herbaceous perennials, trees and shrubs are starting to send out new growth, which also indicates that weeds are going to be sending out their new growth too. And the quicker you can get on top of weeds, the easier it will be all season. What you'll see behind me is all of the grasses and herbaceous perennials were cut back last month, and already there's a mass of green foliage and new shoots popping up. Take a look down here at this pulmonaria that's already in flower, and it shows that if you pick the right plants you can extend the season and have things in flower early spring all the way through the winter if you pick your plants carefully. If you've followed my pruning guide for pears, you'll notice that I thinned this out this year, and already it's looking absolutely fantastic. We've got all of these buds about to break out here with the really soft, furry leaves that are filling before my eyes, and it's a really positive sign that spring is here. If you haven't pruned your fruit trees in the winter, then please do it now. If the buds have started to break, all you're going to do is stress the tree. What you can do is make a note where you would have pruned them, and you can use a really easy method to do this. If you see branches and stems that are in the wrong place that need to come out, tie a bit of string or even ribbon around them. And then at the end of summer, when they've finished fruiting, or next winter, you can prune them back. And it's just a little visual aid that will help remind you of what you need to prune. But don't prune them now, they're in full growth, the sap's risen, and it will just stress the plant. Now, a number of you have been asking about the wildflower meadow and what's been happening, and throughout the winter, as it should be, it's lain dormant. However, now it's burst into life, which means that I've had to undertake the first stage in wildflower meadow maintenance. Let's go and take a look. So March signals the first mow of the wildflower meadow. I've done that this month. And what that does is help keep the grasses low and allow the wildflowers and perennial wildflowers to outcompete them. If you sound check. So take a look down here. This is the viburnum, the Gelder rose. And I planted it as a burr root 2 years ago when I started the wildflower meadow. But it's already starting to turn into quite a woody shrub, which is great. If we look behind me, you'll see there's probably another 30 or 40 different shrubs and trees that are all starting to hold their own, meaning that they're not just twigs in a meadow anymore, they're starting to take on the form of trees and shrubs. And this year, I think we're really going to see this design come to life, because the original design was all about creating a mix of light woodland and also wildflower meadow, and I can really start to feel how this design is knitting together. Now, the path network in the wildflower meadow is simply a mown path that allows you to journey up through this part of the garden. You'll notice it because it's a lot shorter than the rest of the meadow. So I tend to cut the path network on a 3, which is sort of your standard lawn height, but the rest of it with each cut gets cut down to a 4 or a 5 dependent. What that means is I can see where the paths are and I can mow through them every couple of weeks during the summer, whilst leaving the rest of the wildflower meadow to develop and grow. Sound check. Now take a look down here. We've got this gorgeous primrose. This is Primula vulgaris. Now I bought 2 of them and planted them into the garden a few years ago, but you'll start to see that there's all sorts of little baby primroses and even one there popping up behind me, which means that they've self-seeded. Now, when plants self-seed and they survive, it basically means that they found the prime real estate, the perfect position for them to thrive. So I tend to leave them where possible, and I'd advise you to do the same thing, because it means that the plants are in a really safe and established position. Obviously, if they grow where you don't want them, you can lift them and move them on, but in this case, I think they look absolutely gorgeous. And now I found a really awkward shady spot in the garden that has a bare patch, which obviously means one thing: new plants. Come on, Barry. So we're over what I call the granny's garden border, and if you watch my other videos, you'll know that this part of the garden is all based on really soft, cottagey, blousy flowers. So we've got things like climbing roses, we've got about 3 different types of clematis, lupins, basically all of those flowers that if you were in your granny's garden, you'd probably see them. However, I've noticed a gap here at the back. Not only is there a gap, but it's also quite shady. And in the middle of summer, when the rose and the clematis are going absolutely nuts, this is kind of a void. So the kind people over at Sutton's have sent me this, and it's a new variety of hydrangea called French Bolero, and it's a really dwarf variety. Now, it will cope with shade, and it also doesn't grow too quickly. But the beauty of the French Bolero is that it flowers all the way down each stem, whereas more traditional hydrangeas tend to flower on the tips of each of the stem. And what that means is that this is mega floriferous. When it's in full swing, it's going to be covered in flowers, and reportedly, I think they say up to 6 times more than a regular mop-head hydrangea. But we'll put that to the test day. So I'm going to plant it here. I've watered it really well, and I'm going to show you how I do that now. Now, with any new plant, you need to make sure that you give it enough space. This, in theory, will get up to 1 metre in length, which is probably from there to here, and in width. However, it's really slow growing. And what I will do with this hydrangea is prune it into a much neater form. So although it would get to maybe 1 metre after 5 or 10 years, I'm going to keep pruning it because I want to form it into almost like a tiered shape. So the bottom will be bare and the top will look a little bit like wedding cake tiers. So always check the ultimate height and growth. You want to dig a hole big enough, maybe 1.5 times the size of the pot diameter, and then we tap it out. Now I can see this is a bit root bound, so what I'm going to do is just loosen up those roots, and I'll do a close-up of that now. And then once you've done that, you want to pop it into your hole so that the soil level of the plant, which is here, is at the same level as that. You don't want to overbury it because then the crown of the plant can rot and it might die. You also don't want to plant it so high up that all of its roots stick out and burn in the sun. So common sense really, but there we go. An important thing is to really firm it in as well. Make sure that those new roots that have been in the pot can make as much contact with the new soil, because it's going to take a while for them to reach out and start making their own water and food networks. And always when you've planted a new plant, you need to give it a really good water. It doesn't matter whether it's raining, it has rained, it's going to rain. Give it a water because the plant's basically on life support until it sends out those much needed roots. Have you got gardening questions that you need answers for? Well, why not head over to the Garden Ninja forum on my blog, where you can ask me anything about gardens, plants and garden design. There's a whole army of other garden ninjas there that can help provide answers to your questions. It's a really great way to meet the other ninjas, so head over there now. So there we have it, the March tour here at Garden Ninja HQ. If you've liked this video, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button and the bell below. If you've got questions or comments, pop them below this video, or you can visit the Garden Ninja website where there's a huge forum full of other garden ninjas that can help answer your garden design and gardening questions. I've been Garden Ninja, thanks for watching, happy gardening.